April 17, 1961, a moonless night off the coast of Cuba. 1,400 men, fueled by a desperate hope to reclaim their homeland, wait for a signal that will never come. They were promised the full might of the American military. They were promised a revolution. Instead, they were met by a trap. In less than 3 days, a superpower would be humiliated, a young president would be haunted, and the world would be pushed to the very brink of nuclear annihilation. This is the story of the Bay of Pigs, the perfect failure. To understand how this disaster unfolded, we have to look at the world in 1960. The Cold War was no longer a distant shadow. It was a shivering reality. For the United States, the Red Menace of communism was supposed to be something across the ocean. But in 1959, everything changed. A charismatic revolutionary named Fidel Castro overthrew the Cuban government. He didn't just kick out a dictator. He kicked out American businesses and shook hands with the Soviet Union. Suddenly, the USSR had a foothold just 90 miles from Florida. For Washington, this was unacceptable. The CIA began a secret, audacious plan. They wouldn't use the U.S. Army. Instead, they would train Cuban exilesmen who had fled Castro's regime to go back and start a popular uprising. The goal, to make it look like a local revolution, keeping American hands clean. This group of exiles was known as Brigade 2506. They were lawyers, farmers, and students. They were fathers and sons who believed the United States would have their backs. The plan was simple. On paper, Step 1. Use obsolete American bombers, painted to look like stolen Cuban planes. To destroy Castro's Air Force on the ground. Step 2. Land the brigade at a remote inlet called the Bahia de Cochinos, the Bay of Pigs. Step 3. Establish a beach, trigger a mass uprising of the Cuban people, and install what the plan relied on a fatal assumption that Castro was weak. The CIA believed that the moment the exiles landed, the Cuban people would rise up in joy. But did they really know what the people on the ground were feeling? Or were they hearing only what they wanted to hear? The invasion began with a series of catastrophic blunders. April 15, 1961, the preliminary airstrikes fail. They miss several of Castro's jets. Even worse, the cover story that these were defecting Cuban pilots is immediately exposed at the United Nations. President Kennedy, fearing a direct war with the Soviets, begins to pull back. He scales down the remaining air support. April 17, 1961, the invasion begins. But the Bay of Pigs isn't the soft, sandy beach the CIA promised. It is surrounded by jagged coral reefs that tear through the bottoms of the landing craft. As the sun rises, the secret invasion is a public spectacle. The brigade lands in the heat of the swamp. They are immediately pinned down by Castro's militia. Imagine the fear. You are standing in knee-deep water. Your supplies are sinking in the reef, and you hear the roar of jets overhead. But they aren't your jets. They are Castro's. By mid-morning, Castro has 20,000 troops moving toward the beach. The brigade has 1,400. The popular uprising the CIA promised, it never happens. Castro's grip on the island is tighter than anyone realized. By April 19th, the situation is hopeless. The men of Brigade 2506 are out of ammunition. They are out of food. They are literally backed into the sea. Their commanders radioed the U.S. ships waiting offshore, begging for air cover. "We are out of ammo," they cried. "Where's the air support?" In Washington, Kennedy faced an impossible choice. To save the men, he would have to send in the U.S. Air Force, effectively starting a hot war with a Soviet ally. He refused. He chose to let the invasion fail rather than risk World War III. After just 72 hours of fighting, the brigade surrendered. Over 100 men were dead. Nearly 1,200 were taken prisoner. As they were marched through the streets of Havana, the world watched in shock. The mighty United States had been defeated by a small island nation. The consequences were immediate and devastating. Castro, once a revolutionary, was now a hero of the communist world. He turned even closer to the Soviet Union for protection. Because the U.S. had tried to invade once, the Soviets felt justified in placing nuclear missiles in Cuba to protect it. The Bay of Pigs didn't stop communism. It directly led to the Cuban Missile Crisis, the closest humanity has ever come to total extinction. Kennedy took full responsibility in public, but in private, he was furious. He fired the top leadership of the CIA. He realized that in the world of high-stakes warfare, maybe and hopefully are the most dangerous words in the English. Why does a failed invasion from 1961 matter to us today? The Bay of Pigs remains the ultimate warning about groupthink and the dangers of intervention. It reminds us that when we ignore the human reality on the ground in favor of a clean plan on a map, the cost is measured in lives. We live in a world where superpowers still clash through proxies and shadows. As we look at the maps of today's conflicts, we have to ask, have we learned to see the world as it truly is? Or are we still blinded by what we want it to be? History isn't just about who won, it's about why we lost.